Major breaking news to bring to you right now, and happening at the Supreme Court is that the Apex Court has suspended the Kpandai election rerun. We understand that that ruling came a while ago. Let's go straight to the Supreme Court and speak to our correspondent, Fatau Bayaga, who is standing by for us. Fatau, bring us up to speed with events that happened in court earlier.
Such a time that the main or the substantive case, which is the application for an order of certiorari from this court seeking to quash the judgment delivered by the High Court in Tamale on 24th November 2025. Also, the Honorable Court has ordered that we serve the first interested party, or Mr. Nsala Wakpal, the NDC parliamentary candidate by substituted service, through his WhatsApp, the High Court Tamale notice board at the Supreme Court, and also at his residence in Kpandai. So we are most grateful to the court, and we look forward to making our case in the subsequent sittings of the court set at 13 January 2026. Thank you for your time and attention.
The main agenda for today was to get the substituted service. But in addition to that, there's the order to the PC to suspend any proceedings leading to the election on December 30. How do you see this?
The applicant actually prayed for suspension of the process, pursuant to the hearing of the substantive matter, and that is contained in the supplementary affidavit that was served on the Honorable Court. So we are most grateful to the court. It's in the interest of justice that where a legal issue is persistent and we have not reached the finality of it, we do not proceed to take any such decisions that will force the hand of the courts or render the decision of the court negatory. So we are excited that the court has given these orders.
So let's talk with the former Defense Minister, Dominic Nito. He is here. He represented the NPP Parliamentary candidate in court today. What do you make of this particular decision taken by the court?
I think my colleague has already made the case. For us, we are happy that national justice is taking its course, and as far as we are concerned, we will work with the court along the line to ensure that we get justice, because we believe that we have a case. It's as simple as that. That is the rule of law, and we in the NPP, we believe in the rule of law, and for us, justice and the rule of law should take its course. As long as the courts have accepted substituted service, he's going to be served. We'll come back to court on the 13th of January, where the main case will continue.
But the NDC's candidates said that you have not served him. Perhaps, indeed, your party did not get him the right, service when it comes to this particular.
So first of all, it's not the respondent or the petitioners who should serve him or the plaintiff. No, it's an officer of the court that should do that. That is the bailiff who should do that. So the courts couldn't get him to be served, and for us, we think that the courts have done what they need to do by agreeing on substituted service, and we think that that's the right thing to be done. And we are happy with what has happened.
You must indeed be very happy, because this member of parliament, he was in parliament with you. All of a sudden, the Tamale High Court decided to quash that particular, or the 2024 elections. But what do you make of that particular decision taken by the Tamale High Court on the 24th of November?
I think we disagree with it entirely. That's why we are here.
You think he erred?
I'm saying we disagreed with it. That's why we are here. We are here on 3 grounds. We disagree with the outcome. That's why we went to an appeal. We also think that the court should not even have heard it, because the gentleman filed his case 32 days, and the law is very clear. You cannot file your issue 32 days after the Gazette. You can only file it within 21 days. And so we are here to look at, we are praying to the court to look at the issues and tell us who is right and who is not right. So let's move on. We'll get to the main case, and then we'll get there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So let's also get a word from the Minority Chief Whip, Habib Idrisu.
And the law must always continue to be the law.
The next step will be to bring these services to the attention of the first interested party, that is the NDC's candidate. Your lawyer in court indicated that there were challenges in initiating the service, when the bailies went to 1,000 Kpandai, they were not allowed entry. Do you envisage any challenge in executing this substitute service, for instance, posting it on his property as well as posting it in the High Court in Tamale and the District Court in Kpandai?
I don't think it's going to be any difficulty. The court was very straightforward with regards to the services. They indicated a timeline of 7 days, that when after posting it for 7 days, it is deemed to have been served. So posting it at the Supreme Court here is easy. Posting it at the High Court in Tamale is easy. Sending it to his WhatsApp is very easy for us. Posting it in his house is easy. So I don't think it's going to be any difficult matter. And once any of these 5 options given by the Supreme Court is adhered to, he has been deemed to be served. And again, if he tries to still be run away from it, it is very consequential. 7 days is 7 days. And in any case, the rerun of that particular elections has also been suspended. So there is no need to run. Come, face the court and get a judgment so that we can see where the judgment is going to go. But we are very confident and we are grateful. But we call on the Supreme Court to continue to uphold the rule of law and hold onto the strict strategy and procedure of the court. I don't think that anybody should be able to dodge the court and do whatever thing he likes. We will stay to the court and will maintain the legal processes.
Thank you. But Honourable, what is his current status in Parliament at the moment? We know that, because of this particular order from the Tamale High Court, his seat was declared vacant. Based on the Supreme Court's decision today, this morning, what is his status in Parliament at the moment?
I've always maintained that in terms of his status, if you go and read the Court of Appeal rule, 1997 and CI 19, specifically on Regulation 27, 1 to 3, it is clearly indicated and stated in the appeals court's order, the rules of appeal court. Once there is an application pending for stay of execution with the expiration of the 7 days mandatory stay of execution, then it stays, because even the speaker in his ruling on that particular day made reference to this particular appeals court rules that I have just quoted to you. And I think that by law, I think the Speaker ought to have ruled and make or remind the House that Honourable Nyindam still remains the MP for the good people of Kpandai. So
would you push for the Speaker to make this declaration?
The application of the law, so they should apply it. We are not going to push.
As soon as possible?
The law should be applied. The law should be applied. It's not for somebody to push, but the law must be applied. And that what is given to any other person must also be given to Nyindam. We have Jachikwisin enjoying from the same legal view. We also have Dana Bodakwe enjoying from same legal views. I don't think Nyindam is coming from Togo. He's coming from Ghana, and the constitution and laws of Ghana must also be giving him that particular privilege.
Thank you very much, Honourable, for your time. Let's also engage the Director of Elections for the NPP, Evans Nemako, who is here. Please, what do you make of this particular decision by the Supreme Court this morning?
I think my colleagues have said it all, that when it comes to the law, it is the law. And it is important that we as nationals enforce the details of the law. It doesn't really add up for a petitioner to go to courts, initiate processes, challenging parliamentary results. And then a high court comes up with judgment. And it is being challenged. But Parliament will rush out and communicate to the Electoral Commission. And the Electoral Commission will then issue statement for conduct of a rerun of a parliamentary elections.
And that not the law?
Come again?
Was that not the law, the right procedures?
No, that is not. I expect that you look at it. I expect that you look at Article 1992 of the 1992 Constitution. I expect that you look at it. When the affected person is challenging the process, you don't rush. Today, the Supreme Court says, put a stop to it. And that is it. And that is the law.
What does this mean?
I said that the media will interrogate some of these things. A petitioner go to court to say that in 41 polling stations, there have been infractions, and I'm challenging those ones. How come a judge will say that I will extend it to cover all the 152. What is the basis? And nobody is questioning that. That is what is being challenged. And we will challenge until the decision is made by the court. We respect the Supreme Court, we respect the court of jurisdiction, and we must allow that to operate. We are not in a banana republic, are we? We are not.
What does this mean for the NPP election or the NPP in general, this particular decision taken by the Supreme Court this morning?
We will take it one after the other. But this tells you that the law is the law. People are in the constituency trying to put themselves together to participate in a rerun. It is not going to happen because this is an election the NPP candidate won. In fact, we won both the presidential and parliamentary. And the people have decided no one can overturn it. Until this electoral cycle ends, Matthew Nyindam is the member of parliament for Kpandai.
But I understand that you have some officers who are already on the ground who were campaigning. Is that the case?
Please. We're saying that as to when there will be a by-election or not, the law will pronounce it. And I'm saying that for now and until this electoral cycle ends, the MP for Kpandai is Matthew Nyindam.
But there's still going to be a determination on the 13th of January. Would you call back the officers who are already on the ground campaigning?
Who is there on behalf of NPP?
We're told that some officers are already there.
Who told you? I am here. Who told you? And I don't know whom you are referring to. Okay. So please, let's deal with the issue. He's saying that the court, the Supreme Court, the highest court of the land, has spoken today. He said everybody should put on hold until this issue, very important issue, is determined. Let's wait and go through it. But I can assure you that an election in the Kpandai constituency was fairly contested. The whole process ended fairly. Pronouncements were made by the returning officer. Matthew Nyindam was declared MP-elect. He has been sworn in as Member of Parliament. He's been serving as Member of Parliament. Nothing will change it. Go look at each one of the polling stations and challenge any of the results from any of the polling stations. You think what happened in Ablekuma North is going to happen in Kpandai? No way. Thank you very much.
But before you go, I mean, the NDC is saying that, even if there's going to be an election, a rerun, they would beat you hands down. And that's the reason why you are doing some of the things that you are doing at the moment. Is that not the case?
I don't want to respond to this.
Thank you very much. So that was Evans Nemako. He is the Director of Elections for the New Patriotic Party. Today, the Supreme Court sat on an order or an application brought to the court for the court to quash the declaration by a Tamale High Court on the 24th of November 2025. Now, today, the legal affairs director for the NPP, Gary Nemako, made an argument in the courtroom who said that, they tried to serve the candidate of the NDC. They went to his house, they tried every means to serve him, but they could not get him. So the court should, in a way, grant them a substituted service for them to do that. And as we speak this morning, the court has upheld that, and the court has granted them the opportunity to go and serve the NPP, the NDC candidate through a substituted service. In fact, according to the court, they can post this order on the residents of the NDC-PC, also at the Tamale High Court or at the Kpandai District Court, among others, in order for him. And this particular, according to the court, he's been given 7 days to respond to this particular order. And that's the situation here at the Supreme Court here in Accra.
Now, do not go yet. I haven't seen you speak to either representative from the NDC or the Electoral Commission. Have you spotted any of them? Hello, Fatau. Right, so Fatau Bayaga is our correspondent at the Supreme Court. And if you're just joining us, the breaking news coming from the Supreme Court is that it has suspended the election rerun in Kpandai constituency. That particular election rerun was supposed to happen on the 30th of December 2025. We'll be bringing you more details, but at the moment, let's go onto the telephone lines right now and speak to Rashid Tanko Computer, who is the Deputy Director of IT and Research with the governing National Democratic Congress. Rashid, you've always been positive about this election happening on the 30th of December. Now the Supreme Court says it should be put on hold. What do you make of that?
Very well. Let me say good afternoon to you and your cherished viewers. I must say we are not perturbed with the outcome today, knowing very well that our candidate was not safe. And clearly, the court did not mince words in that by telling them that since our candidate was not safe, they can decide to go with their motion that they wanted to move. I'm told they went with the motion for substituted service. And they've granted that leave to go and then service through substituted service. Yes, we are wrong. We are not running away from the country. I mean, nothing changes. Let me put it on record. Nothing has changed. The High Court ruling still stands. The Supreme Court has not made any adverse decision against the High Court decision. It still stands. Nyindam is still a former MP. He's not an MP. He cannot step into the Parliament House. He's a persona non grata if you should dare go there. The law is the law. They shouldn't confuse everybody, and they are confusing themselves and want to confuse everybody to join them. Look, they are only buying their, in fact, they are deferring their defeat. The election was supposed to be 30th. They've gotten the Supreme Court to say, okay, let's push it to 30th. What has changed? It will even give us more time to go and campaign. We'll go and campaign. We'll go and organize ourselves and campaign more. Nothing is going to change. They'll get there 7 days. As well as see, we are all in this country. We respect the law.
Rashid, when I spoke to you yesterday, you seemed fairly confident that the Supreme Court will side with the Tamale High Court and let this election go ahead. Now it's suspended it. We never saw any NDC person at the Supreme Court, at least from the visuals that we're getting from a correspondent in the Supreme Court. I did not spot any person in court today. Who represented the NDC in court today?
I said we are not safe. If I'm not safe, a writ, or I have not been given a sermon to appear in court, should I just walk to the court just because I want to see the faces of the justices? Or I'm coming to see the building? We have other business doing. In fact, we are having our party activities here. We are planning to go and demolish NPP in Kpandai. I should waste time and come and be sitting in the court listening to nonsense. What they have gone there to do is to waste their own time. That 13th, they have put it there. We will slug it out with them.
Are you still going to continue with your campaign? You said you were campaigning there.
Because the Supreme Court says they should suspend the election. Supreme Court didn't say we should suspend campaign. They said suspend the election. They said they didn't cancel it. The wording is suspend the rerun. They didn't say cancel the rerun. So I should wait until 13th when they give me that, okay, you can now go ahead. Then I use only 2 days to go and do the election. No. The Supreme Court says I'm following by their dictates. It's very clear. Suspend the election whilst we wait for the NPP to go in for their substituted service. The burden lie on them. They should go with that route. We are here. We are not fugitive. We are here. We are in the country. If they succeed in that, fine. We'll come on the 13th. And they won't come on the 13th.
If they succeed in what? If they succeed in what?
Substituted service. They say substituted service.
Are you trying to say that your candidate is not going to be available for substituted service?
The candidate is live and kicking. He's been a former MP before. He's a serious law-abiding citizen. He's the one who sent the matter to court. He sent the application January this year up to November. He never ran. He's not a fugitive. I can tell you on authority for the last 2 years, he has not even traveled out of this country. And so they shouldn't bring that kind of thing to say that our candidate is a fugitive, is running away from
nobody mentioned that he was a fugitive, not one that I've heard of.
That is what they are trying to say. The lawyer was trying to say that they tried to save it and couldn't get it. Who told you? We are with them in Kpandai there. NPP people are in Kpandai campaigning. Then they know where the candidate is. What are they talking about?
Rashid Tango Computer, don't go yet. That's the Deputy Director of Elections and IT with the governing NDC. Let's now bring in Justice Abdullahi, who's a law lecturer at the UPSA Law School. Justice Abdullahi, grateful for your time this afternoon. How do you assess this determination that has been reached by the Supreme Court, suspending this particular election that was supposed to have happened on the 30th of December?
Indeed, I think it's a rather surprising outcome. I thought today was supposed to be for the stay of execution. I didn't know it was the certiorari application. It's surprising, but it is a very fair decision of the Supreme Court. I think it is just right that they took this particular decision. And I say this on the basis that a certiorari application, if granted, would literally wipe out the entire judgment of the High Court.
Okay.
So spending money, time to rerunning an election, which could potentially be wiped out by the grant of a certiorari application, would not serve any useful purpose for anyone. Indeed, it would also mean that whoever even emerges the winner in that election to be run on the 30th, assuming everything was to go on, would also have to leave Parliament in a day or two right after he became a member of Parliament. And then the old or former member of Parliament returned to Parliament. That whole drama would not serve anyone's interest. In fact, it becomes a useless exercise of judicial resources and, if you like, public resources. So I think the Supreme Court, on this particular occasion, got it absolutely right, thought through all the options, and came out with arguably one of the best decisions that favors both parties. It's a balancing decision that each party never goes home dry. Remember, they've not thrown away the judgment because the decision has not been made yet.
Okay.
They are only asking for suspension of the decision, which invariably also means that the member of Parliament, the old member of Parliament, at this point sits in between. He's neither out nor in.
Right.
And
that was going to be my next question. What really is the status of the NPP candidate? Does it mean that he goes back to being an MP?
Yeah, well, he has never lost being an MP as far as I'm concerned, because the decision of the High Court has not been fully implemented, as far as I know. If it has been fully executed, then, of course, he's no longer a member of Parliament, in which case he's not a former either. But if it is not fully implemented yet, as we speak, then I can understand that he is still not completely a former member of Parliament. He's still on his way out, but not completely out. And in which case, his situation is a bit dicey and quite unsettled at this point. And so, for me, I'm happy with this outcome, and I commend the Supreme Court for such a thoughtful decision. It sanitizes the system for all of us. Going forward, and it is a momentary decision that would usher all of us into the final outcome post 16th of January. Then the new date may be set, depending on the outcome. A new date may be set by the Electoral Commission, either to rerun or the entire judgment of the High Court completely quashed, and the matters before that decision remains. The status quo ante kicks in which case Kpandai goes with their old member of Parliament. And so I think for all of us, either those of us watching from the fence and those who are directly affected, nobody goes home unhappy because of this decision, because it's a fair decision. It enables all the drawing cards to remain on the table, awaiting the final outcome of the Supreme Court's decision. Let's all remember, as I indicated, a certiorari application has the potential of completely quashing the entire decision of the High Court. Similarly, it could also reaffirm the decision of the High Court. And so it is just right that we hold on to our horses, await the outcome of the decision when it eventually comes out. And then we can all proceed as a nation.
Abdullahi, while we wait, though, I need some bit of clarity. So now Matthew Nyindam was declared a persona non grata by his opponents, the NDC in Parliament. He was given until December 1st by the Speaker. which after he, according to the Speaker, ceased to be a member of Parliament. And you're saying that he's not out of the House yet. So if the House sits tomorrow, can he enter the chamber as an MP?
No, that's not what I said. I said I don't know the extent to which the execution of the High Court judgment has gotten to. And my point was that if it is fully executed, then there's no member of Parliament. Then he cannot have any locus in Parliament. But my point remains that once the rerun has been suspended, and in fact, if you take it from that angle, that is only the rerun that has been suspended. If you take it from that angle, then it means that he's actually not a member of Parliament. It means that the whole execution process is done. So the wording of the Supreme Court decision would have a lot to tell about the status quo of the position of the member of Parliament, the outgoing member of Parliament, or whatever status you want to put in. And so the wording would be very crucial in determining that. But I'm assuming, like I said, if you assume on the basis of the intention to rerun the election, then you could clearly see that maybe the entire execution has taken place, in which case he is no longer a member of Parliament. But he's not completely out yet until the final determination by the Supreme Court. Because once the Supreme Court comes out to say that he's no longer in office, then that's it, and or questions the decision of the High Court, then he can go back to Parliament. If they don't question it, then he goes, he leaves Parliament completely.
The Supreme Court has given. Sorry about that. The Supreme Court has given 7 days for substitute service. What happens when that 7 days elapse and they are unable to serve him?
Well, if they're unable to serve him, unfortunately, it means that I don't know that the consequential orders that the Supreme Court made, but I'm assuming that if the Supreme Court has made that order, they may have to find a way of serving him, and they would have to achieve that either through if it is substitute service, that I'm sure the orders have been spelled out as to what the mode of service that he should be that should be implemented. It could be through WhatsApp. It could be through through the party apparatus or through Parliament. It could be through several means, all of which would be determined by the mode that the Supreme Court has spelled out in making the orders. So if they follow these, then it means that the 7 days would have been achieved. If they don't follow, they may have to go for further directions from the Supreme Court. But I doubt that cannot be. That cannot happen from now to the 7 days, because I'm assuming that the mode of service was also spelled out in granting the substituted service. And so, having said that, it literally makes the 16th or the 13th of January a fixed date for the Supreme Court to come out with their final decision on this matter. Once they have become seized with this case, I'm assuming that they have read all the arguments, all the affidavits in support. And so on that day when the parties appear, their job will be very, very little. They may, making their submissions, the courts may change their mind on whatever they might have decided based on the papers filed or the processes filed, or may affirm their intended decision having read the processes already filed before them.
Is a law lecturer. Thank you very much, with the University of Professional Studies Law School. If you're just joining us, we have a breaking news for you, and that is that the Supreme Court has ordered the suspension of the upcoming Kpandai election rerun, which was supposed to take place on the 30th of December 2025. I still have Rashid Tanko Computer with the governing NDC with me. Rashid, you've listened to all that the lawyer has said, Justice Abdullahi. What are your departing words for us?
Very well. I mean, as a political party, I would say we appreciate his concern. I mean, in fact, I learned a lot from him, the way his position on the Supreme Court ruling. And it didn't take away from what our position has been all along. We are very clear in our mind that the Supreme Court has not asked that the rerun should not be conducted. What the Supreme Court said is they have suspended it. They have suspended it. And that means they've only suspended the defeat of NPP. It's been suspended. For the defeat, they will still get it. On the 13th, yes, if they manage to service the 7 days they have given them, if they manage to serve us, we'll come back. We'll come and face them in court. We don't fear them. We brought them to court. Hey, our lawyers are ready. As we speak now, a team of lawyers are studying the outcome and they are putting people together. And you hear from us officially. Yes, we are ready. We are law-abiding people in this country. And the most law-abiding political party is the NDC. And then so we respect whatever comes out from the Supreme Court. And so we will hold our horses, but the campaign will continue. The Supreme Court has not access not to stop campaigning. They only suspend the elections. That means they are aware of the rerun. The orders has duly been complied by the second respondent, which is the Electoral Commission, and then third respondent, which is the Clerk of Parliament.
Right.
So as we speak now, Nyindam is not an MP. He's a former MP. The seat is still vacant. The only thing is that they've asked that it should be suspended for now. And so let the general public be aware that the election is just being suspended. It has not been cancelled. 13th is around the corner. They've given them 1 week. Let's see how we go about it. We are ready, and we are going to continue our campaign. It will even give us ample time to campaign more so that we can increase the wide margin that we want to give them in the rerun. And so we'll get enough time to do our campaigning and organize ourselves very well.
Right. Rashid Tanko Computer, thank you very much. That's the Deputy Director of Research and IT with the governing NDC. And then, of course, we will be getting more thoughts about this from a wide range of experts. Earlier, we heard from Justice Abdullahi, who is a law lecturer as well, sharing his opinion. And right now, let's bring in Inusa Fuseni, another private legal practitioner, for more on this. Glad you could join us this afternoon. This is a ruling that your colleague lawyer, Justice Abdullahi, said was surprising. Do you share in his opinion? Were you surprised?
I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised because I had said earlier on your network that it appeared to me that there were only two processes that could stop the rerun of the Kpandai election. That is arresting the letter written by the clerk to Parliament to the Electoral Commission, informing them of the occurrence of a vacancy, or the stay of execution of the Court of Appeal of the High Court Tamale on the judgment of the High Court. Now, the matter at the Supreme Court, which is a necessary application to quash the decision or judgment of the High Court Tamale, centers on one of two gazette notifications that was issued by the Electoral Commission, consequent upon the holding of the 2024 election. Now, so depending on where you stand, and depending on the decision of the High Court, the action of the Kpandai MP can fall or be sustained just on the basis of deciding whether or not the petition that the gazette notification that was issued on the 24th December holds sway, or that notification that was issued on the 6th of January holds sway. So that is left to the Supreme Court to determine. And if the Supreme Court determines that they are going by the gazette notification of the 24th of December, the action will fail totally, because it doesn't, I mean, matters of that nature do not concern themselves with the merits of the case. They are statutory limitations. And if the statute says that you are out of time, you are out of time. And that's it. It doesn't matter if your case is solid, but if you are out of time, you are out of time. Now, if the Supreme Court comes to the conclusion that, well, the second notification, gazette notification that was issued on the 6th of January is the one to go by, then they will be well within time. And the only opportunity that they will have to challenge the decision of the High Court Tamale will be to appeal the decision of the court and the Court of Appeal.
So does this ruling change the status of Matthew Nyindam anyway?
Yes. Yes. So I'm sure they would have. I've not gotten the judgment yet.
Okay.
If they are saying they should suspend, they might issue consequential orders as well. But I have not. I mean, we're all flying with or running with the headlines, which says that the Supreme Court suspends the rerun. If the Supreme Court suspends the rerun, they will issue other orders. And so we'll have to wait to see those orders.
Inusaf Hussaini, thank you very much. That's a lawyer and former MP as well. And of course, you have been following this breaking news all along. Let's now do some analysis on this. Let's understand the voting pattern. Who has won what in what year in the last few years in the Kpandai constituency? And head of research here at JoyNews, Isaac Ofieje, is joining me in studio to break down really the last previous parliamentary elections. Which party has carried the day? Isaac, tell us.
Well, so Kpandai is a very interesting seat, and even before we even go into that, analysis of who has won what within the last, let's say about 6 or 7 elections. Remember that there are 2 cases before the Supreme Court, and in fact, the reason why this is important is that, and the reason why the Supreme Court is being drawn into this is because of the matter of, jurisdiction, where the NPP side believes that Kpandai, in terms of gazetting of that election, was had, I think days after the main election was declared on the 7th of December. And that if you look at the date that the NDC filed that case in court versus the agreed or the allowed period of 21 days, that's supposed to be about 32 days, which falls outside of the bracket that has been outlined in law. And so as a result of that, the court should go ahead and say that there was no jurisdiction. And in fact, because you have gone ahead or because you've gone outside of that 21 days, you can't even sit on a case to decide. There was another also issue about, and in fact, we have been saying that this particular Kpandai ruling is a particular or is an interesting situation of statistical sampling in law, where the judge actually used 41 polling station anomalies to say that, well, if I look at the magnitude of the errors in 41, I can confidently say that you should go ahead and rerun all 152. And we should also understand that the court, when it ruled on 24th November 2025, told the EC that they should go ahead to rerun that election within 30 days. And that 30-day window, we know, is supposed to end somewhere around 24th or 28th, depending on how you want to calculate it. And so that window that the High Court of Tamale gave in that ruling is ending around that time, 30 days. And you know that the EC decided to do the election on the 30th of this month. And we understand that the suspension has been done. It simply means that they're now going to sit on the substantive issue to either decide whether Kpandai should be rerun or whatever decision should stay the same. But in fact, we need to analyze what really happened in Kpandai in terms of the legal roller coaster and all of that. Let's go back and get our viewers that trajectory. So in fact, the 7th of December 2024, this was a date that Matthew Nyindam was actually declared winner of Kpandai. And by 25th January 2025, the NDC candidate filed a petition against the result. And if you look at between January 7th and December 7th and January 25th, that's about 32 days. And that is what the NPP is saying, that if you look at this time frame and if you look at the date that it was gazetted, which was somewhere around, I think, 8 or so, that would simply means that there is no jurisdiction here. You are outside of that bracket. So
that means that the argument is that they had 21 days from
21
election
days,
day to file this petition. And they filed it outside the 21 days.
Filed outside the 21 days, which they believe is 32 days after the Gazette was actually done, which means that you are outside of that, grace period of lifeline. And we understand that by 24th of November 2025, that was when the High Court, Tamale High Court ruling came. And in fact, 1st December, Nyindam petitioned the Supreme Court against the High Court's, petition. And we also understand that if you look at the other roller coaster, in fact, we looked at the full, judgment that was put out by the High Court, and we saw more than 20 filing of, affidavit, supplementary affidavits, even before the substantive case was heard before the court decided to go ahead to do the petition. So this has been a legal roller coaster where a lot has actually happened in court, and behind the scenes, there were lots happening in court, each party's filing affidavits and counter affidavits and supplementary affidavits and all of that. But we understand that this actually came to a halt when the court decided on that matter. But in fact, you are interested in the trend. So let's look at that aspect of this whole issue and to see Kpandai, who is who, and in fact, who actually rules Kpandai in terms of... We'll come back to the irregularities, right?
Isaac, sorry to cut you, but before we do that, though, we understand that we have Roxanne Nelson Dafiamakpo, the Majority Chief Whip in Parliament, on standby right now to speak to us. We'll continue, of course, with these analysis, but let's go right now to the House of Legislature and connect with my colleague James Aveji, who is on standby with the Majority Chief Whip, Roxanne Nelson Dafiamakpo. What can you bring to us, James?
Well, Ken, I don't know if you can hear me.
I can.
Not with the majority leader as we speak, but we expect that the majority side as well as the minority sides of Parliament should be making statements on this matter when the House convenes in the next few minutes. The House is expected to convene today at 12 noon, but there's been some level of delay, but we're expecting that to happen. That declaration from Parliament has been sweeping through, from the court has been sweeping through Parliament as well. And most people here, the discussion has been whether or not the MP for Kpandai is still a legitimate member of the House. And so Speaker Alban Bagbin, in his own style, as we have known over the years, we're expecting that he would, again, as he always does, deliver some level of ruling either today or tomorrow on this particular matter to make known officially the status of the Honorable Matthew Nyindam in Parliament. But as far as today is concerned, we are expecting that both sides of the House should make some statements on what has just transpired in court, and so we're looking forward to that. The House is, apart from that, expected to get into other businesses as they race against time to rise finally, or this first session to rise on the 19th of December, which is this Friday. And so we expect a lot of things to be happening on the floor today and the course of this weekend.
Thank you very much. That's our resident correspondent in Parliament, James Aveji. We can now speak to Roxanne Nelson Dafiamakpo, who is the Majority Chief Whip in Parliament. Grateful for your time this afternoon. You, together with the majority side in Parliament, declared Matthew Nyindam a persona non grata. Now, with this ruling by the Supreme Court, what do you make of it?
It is a very straightforward ruling, and there's nothing wrong with this ruling. The Supreme Court is merely saying that upon the final determination of the certiorari application before it, the rerun notice given by Electoral Commission in respect of Kpandai parliamentary elections be suspended. It does not affect Nyindam's position regarding his return to the House. He remains, he is not an MP. Supreme Court has not annulled or overturned the decision of the High Court.
Okay.
So, with all due respect to journalists, when you are communicating this matter, they should be careful not to throw in any confusion. I just heard James Aveji saying, with this matter, what becomes the position of Honorable Nyindam is no longer an MP. And that communication has been given to the Electoral Commission. They've subsequently issued or consequently issued the rerun notice. What the Supreme Court simply has done is that what is slated for the 30th of December for the elections to be held is suspended. A suspension is not coterminous or synonymous with annulment. So nobody should suggest that Nyindam will be recalled to this House. It won't happen. He will remain a persona non grata until this matter is finally determined on its merit, whether the appeal or the certiorari. And so that is how this matter should be communicated or ought to be communicated. Nobody should throw in any mischievous line. It is rerun that is suspended. It is not the rerun order that has been annulled or the order calling for a rerun that has been overturned. Nothing has been overturned. Nothing has been annulled. It's only a suspension. A suspension means an interim freeze.
Right. The Supreme Court, of course, is going to hear this case again on the 13th of January 2026. The NDC, I want to believe, is confident that it will rule in your favor.
Yes, we have not been served. As you may have heard, we were not served. It was an ex parte application. The substantive certiorari application, we have not been served because our client, my colleague, has been busy up north. I don't know how the bailiff went to look for him and went back to court and posted affidavit of non-service. But whatever it is, if once the substituted service order has been granted by the court, we'll deal with it. We'll see, we'll look at the terms. And once we get served, we'll enter this matter. And let the record reflect that the issues that they are raising before the Supreme Court in the certiorari application, before an application to dismiss the petition. And it failed. It failed woefully. So we have the affidavit that they filed in support of the application, the affidavit that they filed in opposition to the application. Everything has constituted part of the records will be taken up. So everybody should be calm about this matter.
Broxton Nelson Dafiamakwa, grateful for your time this afternoon. That's the Majority Chief Whip in Parliament. Let's bring you back into the studio and continue with my colleague Isaac Kofieje, who is the head of research here at JoyNews. Isaac, you were giving us some numbers and would like to continue.
Well, in fact, let's look at the irregularities that the NDC actually sent to court. So in fact, it's important to look at, to sample some of the 41 polling stations that the NDC had issues with and look at some of the irregularities that they actually presented to court. So for instance, if you look at this polling station where DA Primary School, West Bank, Kumbi, for instance, the NDC, in what they presented to the court as one of their facts or, exhibition or affidavit, says that, there were pink sheets of voters exceeded the ballots issue. So where the pink sheet votes, actually exceeded the ballots issue, they had an issue with that. That was one of the key irregularities that the NDC sent to the court. If you look at DA Primary School, Dodai, there were also ballot box votes missing on pink sheet. That was also significant, according to the NDC, saying that, well, High Court of Tamale, we want you to look at this and based on that, make a decision on the Kpandai election. And remember that our parliamentary system is first past the post, right? Yeah. And so even one vote has the chance to, or the probability to change the outcome of the election. Yes. And many said that, well, the judge may have erred in law, but those who also are looking at the whole issue from statistical point of view says that, well, the judge may be right because you are looking at 20% of the entire polling station, which is very, very significant. And there are other case laws that many are also stating that looking at those case laws, it was enough. And the judge had every, legal right to go ahead to say that we needed a rerun in all of them. Because if there are issues with 41 polling station results, which is about 20% of the entire polling station or the entire result, then, and since the first past the post, then it
likelihood
be,
that there could be
there's
more.
High probability that maybe if you should sample other polling station results or other, if you look at that pink sheets from other polling station, you may have issues or irregularities also appearing. And based on that, the judge is saying that, well, this is a significant sample size for me to be able to base on that and say that let's do a rerun in all of that. Many belong to different school of thought. But going ahead with some of the irregularities, there were also registered voters exceeding ballot issue. Almost all of them are around the votes recorded versus what was actually, registered. All of these issues were the ones that were actually, raised in court by the NDC.
Isaac, I would want you to hold on again. Let's go to the northern region and speak to our resident correspondent, Martina Bugri, who has been monitoring events in the Kpandai constituency. Martina, you've been engaged in some of the constituency. Yesterday, they said that they were prepared to go to the polls on the 30th of December. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court says that is not going to happen. What are they saying now?
Now, the news is just filtering in and beginning to spread. So people are yet to make meaning out of what has just happened. For the two parties, the NPP earlier on was having their own meeting. They had arranged this morning meeting polling station executives at their party office. And so the news came in just when they are about to end the meeting. Now they are saying that they are not going to speak to the issue now. They are waiting from the leadership of the party from the national level and the MP to communicate to them what they should do next. And so for them, they are not ready to talk yet. The NDC earlier on came this morning, arranged themselves and set off to campaign in the community. So for them, they are at the community level doing their campaign. So when you go into Kpandai now, the place is calm. People are beginning to get aware of what has just happened at the Supreme Court.
Campaigning in the region, they've not shied away from that. But what about the NPP, though? Are they campaigning?
Now, yesterday, they were in some communities, but they are telling me that what they are doing is engaging with the various communities to tell them what the Tamale High Court has said. They don't call that campaigning. But the communities they have visited say, oh, they came to do campaign. But the party itself says, no, that is not what we call campaign. What we are doing is engaging our supporters, our polling station agents, and discussing what has happened at the Supreme Court.
Martina is our resident correspondent in the northern region. Thank you very much. Let's bring you back once again to the studio and continue on the analysis on the touch screen with my colleague Isaac Kofi Ejay. Yeah. Isaac, this is the interesting bit that
there's a bit that you've been looking forward to.
Exactly.
And in fact, looking at this data, I actually understand why the poll results that we saw yesterday from Global Info Analytics is looking the way it is looking, because in Kpandai, there are so many identical stuff when you look at the numbers, right? So looking at 2020, 2024, and you were drawing my attention to the fact that if you look at the last 4 elections, Matthew Nyindam has won 3 out of the last 4 elections. The only election he didn't win was a 2020 election which brought Wakpa to Parliament, right? And in fact, if you look at Kpandai, it's a very closely contested seat for both political parties. And winning margins and losing margins are always very identical in each election year. Just look at 2020, where NDC won with 53.3%. The NPP was trailing with about 47.6%. Same situation, 53 versus 52, not really that significant difference, but it's still first past the post, so it's still significant. NPP also winning around that same percentage in 2024. NDC trading around the same 47, 46. And so it tells you that you look at Kpandai, both political parties, this is a clear case of a swing constituency. It may not be a bellwether constituency, but it's a swing constituency because it never stays with one political party. You look at it from 2004 to 2024, and it gives you that picture, telling you why Global Info Analytics could come out to say that, well, we don't see any clear winner yet, because what we even have is very close. And if you look at the number of undecided voters, that's 3%. Very, very significant. If you look at the margin of wins between the two political parties over the years, it's still very too close to call. So if there was only going to be any form of by-election in Kpandai, it was going to be difficult to actually call who was going to win. And in fact, it is interesting that a constituency that has about 43% of its registered voters not being educated, voting in this direction, it tells you that convincing the people isn't that easy. And the mode of campaigning should also be a bit different from what you possibly would do in Ablekuma North or Akwetia, where more than 50% or 60% are educated. Here it's different. So many factors. And in fact, where you even come from is also a big factor in terms of, winning any election in a constituency like Kpandai, where we've been made to understand that looking at the demography of that constituency, it paints a picture of an interesting constituency where it doesn't belong to either of the two political parties. It's actually a swing constituency. And you look at, the margin of win between the two political parties, very, very closely contested. We look at the gaps, right, where nobody has been able to win Kpandai by more than 60%. since 2004.
I'm even just noticing that in the last 6 elections, the NDC has won 3,
exactly,
and the NPP has won 3. So that shows how closely contested elections are there.
Very, very close. And in fact, I mean, there are so many factors that will play out, and we have always said that looking at the current, temperature in the country, if you hold any by-election on any form of election, or which is national in outlook, you need the voter turnout to be very, very high. In fact, if you really want to win, you should be able to whip your base and also get floating voters, where Kpandai also has a certain significant number of floating voters. So winning such a seat highly depends on how you are able to whip people's propensity to come out to vote. Very, very important. If you leave them to decide as to whether they will come or not, they might not turn out, because you look at it, 43% not really educated, but still they vote in a certain direction that does not belong to any domain of any of the 2 political parties that have reigned Kpandai since 2004. So, but whatever happens here in terms of the outcome of the election, whether there is going to be a rerun or there will be no rerun, after hearing the substantive case on the 13th of January, and the court believes that, well, the High Court decision still holds, and there's going to be a rerun, then it will be interesting to see where the curve will be after that election. We've seen different templates this year. We've had about 1 by-election, and I think 2 by-elections, and I mean 1 rerun in about 19 polling stations in Ablekuma North. We've seen how those 2 by-elections have actually turned out. 1, there was no really any contest, and even the Akwitia one is a typical, paints a typical picture of what should happen in any by-election around this time. And in fact, we are all not really sure how Kpandai is going to vote, especially looking at their history, how they vote, their historical pattern in terms of their voting trajectory over the last, since 2004. It's difficult to see where Kpandai will go. Then
I want to believe that you were not quite surprised when the Global Info Analytics poll came out.
I was not.
Putting the NPP candidate ahead.
I was not, because if you look at it, momentum, just by looking at holding all other factors constant, we didn't put it that way, that momentum is actually on the side of Matthew Nyindam, because he has been with the people. He's won it in the last 4 elections. He's won 3 of them, and 1 is being contested as to whether if he really won the 2024 election. But just look at the momentum of the graph, What you see is that momentum possibly is on the side of Nyindam, where Wakpa, for instance, is dropping in terms of winning 2020 and dropping by, 46.6%. But there are so many issues that have been raised about irregularities and all of that. That could also play an important part in how, the actual situation of the 2024 election was. But the EC was also in court in Tamale, and they were asked, and the argument was that the irregularities that occurred in the 41 polling stations, according to the EC, they believe they didn't really have any significant impact on the outcome of the election. But of course, the court ruled that, well, we have looked at the 41 polling station, the irregularities, and we believe that it is significant enough for us to transpose that to the general 152 and say that go and have a rerun in 152. But whatever happens, this is where the game will be.
Interesting.
The status of Parliament, This donut chart paints a picture of how the NDC is taking a big chunk of Parliament. It reflects in when they sit in Parliament. This chart is actually something that you can actually see with your eyes when the MP sits in Parliament. You can see that the NPP side, at one corner, and somebody even said that one corner minority. But that's not what we want to say. But this pie chart will be important, the outlook of this pie chart, because we also understand that there are other 3 constituency, parliamentary elections that are still waiting for, we're waiting for the court decision on that as well. And whatever happens, it is either the NPP increases their blue in this donut chart, or the NDC increases their green dominance, as we have seen in the outlook of Parliament. But, in fact, whatever happens in Kpandai, it is not just going to be a legal battle, but also in terms of numbers, there are real stories behind that although it will not really change anything in Parliament, but it will solidify the NDC's case of having not absolute majority, but let me say super majority in Parliament, and then also go ahead to make the point that, well, we reign. In fact, we've been able to win all 2 or all 3, by-elections that we've had in 2025. So whatever happens, there's going to be a big political bragging right for the 2 political parties. Even with this ruling that has to do with suspension, you see how both political parties are beginning to communicate. Yeah. Everybody trying to draw political capital out of what the Supreme Court has said. But I agree with Justice Abdullahi, who says that he believes that this is a balance, ruling that will mean that both political parties are not working home dry. So this is the status of Kpandai. Whatever happens after 13th of January, we'll be here to analyze it for you.
Isaac Ofieje, thank you very much. That's the head of our research desk here at JoyNews. Let's go back to the telephone lines right now and speak to Sami Ewuku. He is the MP for Akuapem North, and he was at the Supreme Court earlier today. Sami, glad you could join me this afternoon. Really, a lot of persons are asking what really the ruling was about, and since you were in court, what a better person to tell us what it was about. What did the ruling say?
Well, first of all, let me say a very good afternoon to your cherished viewers and listeners across the world. Let me put it on record that I do not really understand when somebody says it was a balanced ruling. What's the meaning of a balanced ruling? The courts were clear. The Honorable Court expressed their serious dissatisfaction, first of all, with the absence of the Electoral Commission of Ghana. And the Honorable Court said they found that even more disrespectful that the Commission could make time to attend the Supreme Court on a serious matter that borders on the legitimacy of a fee. Where the MP belief is that we won fairly, the Electoral Commission affirmed our win, and then through the back door and mathematical gymnastics, and with the obsession of the dictates of our country and seek a third-term mandate for the sitting president through the back. They are trying to all manner of Machiavellian tactics to strip the entity of that we legitimately won. So the Electoral Commission was not their lawyer.
Sami, if you can kindly reposition yourself and speak up a bit for me, I'm losing you.
Is it okay?
Much better.
Yes, so the Electoral Commission, they were not in court. Their lawyers came. Their lawyers even had to apologize on their behalf. And the court found it very disrespectful that a whole Electoral Commission with several numbers of commissioners, none of them to show representation and respect the court. Second, the NPP, this whole party is about unbridled desire to alter the constitutional dictates of our country and seek a lifetime presidency to a third-term presidency for President Mahama. So that's what popular value is about. Because I can stand and watch imagination. I'm in part of that. I'm just standing just in front of the chamber. We don't even have 30 NDC in the chamber. Always see the people refer to as micro minority. We always have to be special to get the number to do business. So so there are numbers 4. They are not here. I can tell you, you really have 30 NDC in the chamber. We have spent half of our day. Then we moved to Parliament to do business for our nation and support government to manage their tax. So today, the court did clearly state that because this man, what the application for certiorari important on the essential outcome as to whether the polls can be rerun or it is important that the matter is heard in the supreme interest of justice. It's also important that the end that brought this case forward should not be avoided. They
right.
Their position. And that's why the court said that then let's find the rerun of them. And so we get the NDC's parliamentary candidates and the NDC as a political party to also show that fidelity to the laws of our country. So I don't understand when somebody tells me it's a fair ruling. What is a fair ruling about? The court was clear. They were very disappointed that the parliamentary candidate of the NDC that brought this case to court was nowhere to be found. He's avoiding service. So how can we have the case also properly adjudicated upon? And justice must be seen to be done. And that's why the court said, okay, guys, What then we'll do is that let's adjourn it, let's suspend the rerun of the poll, let's adjourn and then reconvene on the 13th of January for all sides to also participate. Look, let me be brutally frank with you. Just before I go off, let me be brutally frank with you. This Machiavellian tactic, we are clear in our minds that we are going to weather the storm. Suhum is on Thursday. The NDP also behind all kinds of sections of people are trying to strip us of that. We believe we have a good case, and Suhum will not fall green on Thursday. Suhum will remain blue with the NPP by the end of Thursday this week.
Samuel Oku, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. That's the Member of Parliament for Ekuapim North. And that's how we wrap up our extended coverage of the Supreme Court ruling suspending the upcoming Kpandai election rerun. My name is Kenneth Jesse. For more news, you can log on to myjoyonline.com. We have continuous coverage of this breaking news in our subsequent bulletins. Have a good afternoon.